today. Welcome to another episode of the Wanderlust Wealth Show. Today we have Lenny Leonard Smith, aka Lenny The Boss, who is a fabulous real estate investor. And I think the biggest thing though is really he's changing the game in terms of the young minds of America. Like literally changing the game and so focused on changing people's trajectory. And I'm so excited to just really dig into what you're doing, Lenny, and just more about your journey as well.
Hey, listen, first and foremost, I just want to say thank you for having me on because you're awesome. You're beyond awesome. I remember the first time I met you out in Nashville, I believe, right? And honestly speaking, and this is like the young folks say, this is no cap right here, right? I was on the other side of the room. You're on the other side of the room. What was it? Like 200-300 people at this after party event. And I'm like, who is that lady? I got to go over there and meet her. And thank God you was speaking to somebody that I knew. So I said, oh, that's an easy way for me to get in. and you don't even know that, I don't think.
That's so funny.
I saw you earlier that day. I said, I'm going to go up to my in-law and say, hey, how you doing? Let's meet each other. And then I saw you with Libby, and I was like, you know what? I said, this is my opportunity. Let me go over, and that's how I ultimately went over and said, hey, what's happening? What's your name?
I love that you did that because literally, I bring the energy, but you bring the energy. And I'm like, okay, let's go.
Awesome,
good.
Awesome,
Lenny, why don't you tell everyone, who is Lenny, even before the real estate investing? How did you get started? Because I think for so many people, it's they're stuck in their corporate jobs or they want to get started. And it's just how, So can you share with people your story?
Yeah, I can. So, I always like to start from my humble beginnings, right? I was born to my mother, which I love her, man, so much. She's a single family mom. I'm from North Philadelphia. Not the best of neighborhoods. We lived in a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom row home. My mother had 10 children. Okay. And I'm the 10th kid, and honestly, we were poor. And the funny thing about it is that we didn't even know that we were poor because everybody around us was poor. So the scale was even, right? And my mother, though, she had everything in her bag except for anything that had to do with money, financial literacy, anything like that. She just didn't have it in her bag. But the big thing she pumped us up with was love. And she gave us other attributes to sit here and build ourselves up, right? So, as I'm growing up in this neighborhood, I'm deciding that, I want a little better for myself. I'm starting to get out the neighborhood and meet some people and realize at that time, oh my God, we are poor. Okay. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, we're not just poor, but if poor is here, right, we are under the poor line, like 3 or 4 feet, So I start meeting some people, kind of, understanding that there's more to life than what, we saw in our, 4 to 5 block radius that we always went. And so I decided, obviously, to go to college. And when I went to college, I also went to school full time. So I worked full time. And I went to school full time. I got up, went to work by 7. I was out of there by 5. I was in school by 6 and out of there by 10. And I had this vampire syndrome, so I didn't have to sleep much. So I don't suggest that people follow this one, but I used to go hang out with my friends after school and then go do my homework 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and then back at it. Yeah, I don't suggest you do that. Go do your homework first. So, I did that and I graduated from college and I stayed with this job and, I helped, basically build the job because when I was there, it was roughly 10 people when I first got the job. And then, I kept getting promoted, and I became the vice president of operations there, got up to a staff of up to 200 people. I was responsible for well over $1 billion in AR and responsible to ensure that we collected over $300 million annually for our clients. So it was a big time role. And I was there for 22 years. And while I was there, I started making some money. And, you go to your CPA and they say, you're paying a lot in taxes. So you need to start to, obviously lower that, and real estate was one of those things. So I had a buddy that was doing real estate. This is a funny story. I had a buddy that was doing real estate, and I was like, when my CPA brought real estate to me, I was like, I don't want to do no real estate, because my buddy, all he did was complain. I'm talking about the roof, the tenants, the contractors, everything. All he did was every time I talked to him, he complained. But it was something weird, I saw. They kept buying
they still kept going.
And I'm like, I couldn't wrap my finger around it. So then I saw that they moved to a bigger house. Then I saw they him and his wife upgraded the vehicles from like Honda Accords to like BMWs and Benzes. And I'm like, the jobs y'all have are not even like the best jobs. Then they're like, oh, we're going to Cancun this weekend. We're going to Jamaica this weekend. And I'm like, dude, like, what's up? And he like, oh, it's the real estate. I said, the real estate? And I'm like, you don't even like real estate. He said this. I should kill him. He said, I want to apologize to you, dude. He said, but you're my friend, so you the person I complain to.
Gosh.
I never heard any of the good stuff about real estate. All I heard was everything that was negative. Even if it really wasn't negative, he just complained about it anyway. So with that comment, I said, cool. So I started jumping in, and I created the goal. And I created the goal to buy one property a year. So it's important to create a goal. And I'm going to tell you why. So I was buying a property a year. And then my wife, she was employed, and she was reporting to the president of this company that she worked for. And the president also has some ownership. And unfortunately, that relationship was going sour quick. So my wife was coming home miserable every day. And I'm going to tell you, I was being the worst husband in the world when I was a super husband. At that time, my wife and I put together a savings plan. We were saving some really good money. So when she come home miserable, I was like, baby, just look at the bank account.
Oh, my gosh.
I know. I can't believe it. Like I can't believe it even myself. I know. I'm like, hun, look at the bank account. Until one day she came home with tears in her eyes. And you know me. I live like a happy life. I run a happy ship here. So I came down to the lab that you see me in here, pulled open my portfolio. This is how Guy works. I said, oh, wow, we're bringing in enough rental income to cover what she's making, right? And this was the wake-up call to me, number one, how powerful real estate is. So I put my cape back on. I flew upstairs, and I said, honey, you could put in your 2 weeks. You don't have to sit here and work there anymore. And we stayed up all night long talking about just what do she want to do. So that was wake-up call number one for me for, wow, real estate's a powerful thing. Now, the next thing that happened was about 3 to 4 years later, right? The company I work for gets sold. And then 3 to 4 years later, I get laid off after 22 years on the job.
That's crazy.
2 years on the job, I get laid off. And you know how long it took? It was, I think, tops 3 minutes. If I can go back, it was really 2.5 minutes. I'm going to tell you, I was sitting right here. My COO called me. They say, oh, I'm so sorry, blah, 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 blah. Once I hung up the phone, and for the viewers who can, audience who can see this, I put my head back like this. And maybe 9 or 10 seconds later, I pop up and say, oh, snap. I got to find health insurance. And I say that story because I felt good that, at this point in time, we had enough rental income to support everything that we need. My big thing for me is bigger than me, is all about my son. I don't want my son to live anything different. So, I was just like, hey, can he still play the sports he want to play? And can I still afford them? Yes. Can we still go out and see the world? Yes. Can we still make sure we pay our bills, most importantly, right? Yes. Can we still have some money to sit to the side and invest? Yes. And once all those boxes were checked, I said, you know what? I already started my part-time entrepreneurship. Right now, I'm going full time.
I love, there is so much to unpack here. So number one, I literally love that you said that, you grew up poor, but you didn't even know that you were poor. Cause that was the same for me. Like I grew up in government housing in the UK. I had no idea. My parents provided me with like a really good life. And I always find that to be so interesting because I think of even when people have like young kids, right? There's this stigma or this idea and belief that you have to have like this big house because you're having a baby and you need to have like a giant house and this giant mortgage so that you're stable. And like, I get it. But also like those early days, kids don't remember anything. Everything you provide for them, right? Like is amazing. I'm like, and it's so funny because I've met so many people who are doing like our new parents and everyone's doing it in such different ways. There's like a podcast episode that I did with, I don't know if you know her, Zoe Berghoff, but she's like driving around in a camper van or in a Jeep with a rooftop camper van and takes her baby with her, like to all of the renovation projects and all of that. And it's like, I still don't want a big giant house and a mortgage because my goal right now is financial freedom. So it's like understanding like when kids are really young, there's a lot more you can do with them.
Oh my God, yeah. Oh my God, yes. Yes. So much more. And, and that's the thing. But you know what? I'm going to tell you something. It all starts with exposure though, because the thing, and that's why it's important for me to, and that's why I say earlier, one of my check boxes was, can I still expose my kid to the world? Because look, I was in my box when I was a kid. We weren't poor. You know what I mean? My mom had dinner on the table. There was sometimes we didn't have some electricity, but some of my friends didn't have no heat either. So it was like a normal thing. You know what I mean? And but once you start to get exposed to things and you start to see more of this world, more of this country, and I'm not just talking about materialistic things, just seeing that, wow, you can have a choice. And I think that's the biggest thing to me. Money allow you to do really one thing, is just really have more decisions to make.
Yeah, and more choice. Honestly, more choice.
Warren Buffett said, we all do the same thing. Warren Buffett said, hey, you drive a car, I drive a car. You fly in an airplane, I fly in an airplane. You live in a house, I live in a house. He said, the difference is that you might drive just a Honda Accord and I can afford to drive a Bentley. I can fly private and you might fly coach.
But like you, right? As the, more wealthy person, you get to choose, right? Like you get to choose what's important for yourself. And it's so funny. So I love what you said about exposure, because even like right now, I choose to house hack. I love house hacking. I'm like, I'm not going to pay a fee, right? But I always make sure that, okay, like I may be house hacking like on the outskirts, but I'm going to keep putting myself into situations where I'm constantly exposed to people doing bigger and better than me, right? So that I can keep pushing myself. And I think we were talking about this earlier before the call is, I'm planning on joining this membership group with a bunch of really high level entrepreneurs. And that's like the exposure and the expansion that I need. So it's like, think about your trade-offs there. And like, let's say, you don't live in the best area, but like, what are ways that you can position yourself to get that exposure?
And that's it right there. And that's it. And I'm hoping, platforms like yours, more parents can see this, on top of parents, more young folks can see this and also live through you too and say, oh, wow, because sometimes you don't know what you don't know. Some people don't know a darn thing about house hacking. Literally never even heard the term. And so they like, wow, I would have done that if I would have known.
I would have done it like in college, And I'm just like, wow, what an idiot. How did I not? Oh my God.
I think about this. Listen, everybody sit here and say, get yourself a mentor, right? Now, when I first bought my first property, I did. My mentor had 80 properties. I seemed like a good mentor to me, right? And I'm going to be honest, he really was. What I didn't do was search around for others to pick a mentor. I just solely went with him, his system. So for my first couple of houses that I purchased, I spent all my money. I bought the house cash. I fixed the house up. and then rented it. And I did it in that way. It was a very slow process. Go out, look at, I'm listening to Robert Kiyosaki. He says, go look at 100 houses before you buy one. I'm looking at 30, 40 homes. And then I find this one property. We purchased the property. I call it abandonmentium. It had no bathroom. It needed a roof. It had that plastic thing over top of the roof. Yeah. It had no flooring, no kitchen, no nothing, but I said, man, this is it. So, we purchased that bad boy, with cash. And then let me tell you, I use cash, again, my W-2 cash to sit here and fix the property up to get rent. And then once I got a tenant and start renting it out, that's when I said, okay, it's time to start looking for another property, which all that stuff is all wrong. I didn't do no burr. I didn't do no refinance. I didn't use anybody else's money. Those are the things that I didn't know because my mentor was saying this is what he has done. So I was following his path and I was doing it his way. Honestly, if I can go back, at the time, I would have probably purchased, because those houses was like, in the neighborhood I was purchasing in was like anywhere from 18 to 20.
Oh my gosh, that is cheap. Okay, but to be fair, you can't even get a loan on that. Like, you could use private money, but you can't get a regular loan. True. Really?
Do
you do a personal loan?
Yeah, not true. Let me tell you. No. So let me tell you a story. Girlfriend. Let me tell you a story. Property number 3. Okay. I see this property. They want $32,000 for it. Okay. I went in there. This property was so bad that you literally can only stay in the house for 1 minute before you have to go back out for air. Okay. That's how bad it smelled inside. Right. However, even though the kitchen and the bathroom was terrible, it was operational. All right. That's important that I'm telling you this, right? Because that's what, and the heating system was operational as well. It was old, but it was operational. And I'm telling you this because those are the things the bank look for. Now, what happened here is that I start calling banks, and every bank was saying, "Oh, you have to have a carrying loan of $50,000
that's what I thought."
Right? Okay, that's me. I got to keep calling because I don't believe. Right? So, and I'm gonna tell you a crazy funny at the end. I'm calling bank after bank after bank after bank. I know I ran through about 20 to 25 banks. Right? So then I'm home. Right? Looking at my own personal mortgage. And that's the bank I didn't call.
Oh my gosh. Yep.
And guess who said, so I called them. I would never forget. It was a City Bank. I called them and I'm like, hey, I want to purchase this house. Would you give me a loan? They was like, yeah.
Just no questions asked.
Yeah. So I'm like, you sure? Because, remember, I got like 25 no's. Yeah. They were like, yeah, what's the problem? As long as you, boom, 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 you put your down payment on, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, cool. So, yep. So let me tell you what I did. So let me tell you this. So I put the bid on the property. I lost the bid, right? Somebody outbidded me for $38,000. So then I told my realtor, for whatever reason, in my gut, I felt as though I needed that property. I said, why don't you call them and tell them that if anything happened to fall out, give me a call, give us a call. And that's what she did. Like a week later, my realtor texted me and said, do you still want the property? And I'm like, yeah, right. She said, well, I just got a call from the realtor to rebid. So we rebid it for $32,000. And the bank said no, right? And I'm like, what?
Wait, Citibank said no?
Here? Like, we just rebid it. No. It was a bank-owned property.
Okay.
So the bank was like, no, we're not accepting that, right? A day later, right? They declined our offer. A day later, their realtor again texted my realtor and said, put your bid back in for $38,000.
Oh my
That's
God,
what happened with
classic.
The first people who was getting the property.
Classic.
And they didn't want to put in the extra money, right? This is not today's time, right? This is we're talking 10 to 11, 12 years ago, all right? Totally different time. Everybody's coming out of pocket these days to overpay for properties.
Oh my gosh.
So then I got the property right? So, and how cool was this? I think I put like $9,000 down, right?
Oh my God.
This was a solo steal. You're gonna love this whole story. $9,000 down, and then I put like about almost maybe a little more than 20,000 in it to fix it up, right? And then I was renting it out for roughly around $1,300.
That's ridiculous.
Hold on, it gets better. The story gets better. Okay, so at the time I was cash flowing about, I don't know, almost $700 on this one property, right? So after all expenses paid, mortgage, I'm responsible for the water, and I'm responsible for, I think, the HOA or whatever. It's about $700 I'm cash flowing. So I'm loving it. So in 3 years, this property appreciated from 38,000 to like 108.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, where is this property?
Hold on. Let me tell you, the story gets better. So 3 years, the tenant I have in there, right, paying $1,300. At this point in time in the neighborhood, the rents went up from $1,300 to roughly about $18,000, $19,000, $2,000, right? Well, guess what? My tenant left. And guess what I did? I refinanced that property. A cash out refinance, right? So I pulled out about, I don't know, almost $90,000. Right? God. And hold on, it gets better. Did I put a new tenant in for about $1,800 a month? So I'm still cash flowing about $700.
That is ridiculous. That is what a gem of a property.
So and I guess the key to that story really is that every bank told me that they would not lend on a investment loan, right, under $50K carrying loan. All right, it's important everybody know that the carrying loan had to be with $50K, but that didn't stop me. I constantly called every bank that I can find, and it just so happens that I didn't call the bank that was on my own personal house, and I called them and they said no problem at all. They will do it. And it was the most easiest process, wasn't any different than any other process at all. It just, and I was happy about that.
Well, and this is the thing. So. It's like you didn't stop at one. I think so many people, they're like, oh, I called around to 2 or 3 banks, like, keep calling, and that's why I say, like, I'll literally, if there's something that I really want to do and I know that it's going to be a struggle, I'm like, we've got 100 properties listed or we've got 100 banks listed out and we're calling every single one of them to see if we can make it happen. And it's like, you have to be tenacious. You have to keep asking because you just need one person to say yes. Literally one.
You just need one. And that was that property. And that property wound up, like I said, I was able to, score, I don't know, what's the math on that? You're cash flowing about $7,000 a month, $7,700 a month, and that's about like $8,500 a year. So for 3 years, I made all my money back.
Well, and then you cash out refi, and you like,
and then I cash out refi, I'm still with a bigger mortgage now. Remember, I got a bigger mortgage now, and I'm still cash flowing the same amount that I was with the smaller mortgage. So, that's why I told people it's not really the amount of properties that you have, it's the quality of properties that you get that can really sit here and change
completely.
Things.
So where is this house? What market?
The market's up right now in that neighborhood.
Everywhere, but
that one is in New Jersey, South Jersey, in an area called Sicklerville,
New Jersey. Okay, that's good to know. I actually have a student who's in New Jersey. Just you never know, because even the market is up, but there are still deals to be had out there. Like I literally just have one of my students, Liz. She just purchased a property in upstate New York for $160K. It appraised for like $200. And she's going to be cash flowing almost $1,000 on it. It's like this little duplex. As a long term. And I'm like, guys, they're out there.
You just have to find them.
Exactly.
You just have to find them. And truth be told, I'm going to give you another bullet. All of my long terms, except for one of them, were all found on MLS.
Yep.
Because these days everybody's poo-pooing.
I love the MLS personally. Because there's always like, I especially love looking at properties that have been sitting for 30 days, 60 days, 100 days. There's this one property I'm looking at here in Colorado. It's been sitting for 100 and something days. They started really high and they've just been like slowly lowering it. I know that their hard money loan is due soon. I'm like, you're going to have to do something soon. Just patiently waiting.
Yep. But you got to learn to play the game. So you understand how money, hard money works, right? So with that being said, you can now build a strategy around it and start to sit here and play that game. So, I mean, it's just like real estate has been obviously so good to me. And when I just look at real estate in general, how it feeds just everyone. I mean, it feeds the contractors, it feeds the roofers, it feeds the HVAC people, it feeds the people who do the lawn, the plumbers. I mean, the carpenters, the electricians, and it's like, wow. And that's a added bonus to know that, man, when I hire people, because I have 2 tenants that just left 2 of my properties, and I'm getting them fixed up right now to flip them. I'm upping those rents as well. And, to flip them. And I'm like, I feel good about it. Like other people complain, but I feel good that I have an electrician that's going to come in and rewire something. And one of my other properties need a roof. I got a roofer going on the 10th, right? That's coming in, putting a brand new roof on the property. I'm feeding someone with roofing and helping them feed their families. You got some carpenters and some painters coming through, to paint the other place and fix up just all the, little nicks and nannies on the walls and a couple little small holes that was put in the walls. And I'm like, to me, that feels great. I'm helping out the economy. We all eating together. You know what I mean? And like, I don't complain about that. Like, I'm happy to sit here and hire you for the right price, of course. Now, I'm not a fool now. Don't be calling me like, yeah, you said that you are. No, for the right price, I definitely go with you as long as your work is great for the right price. But I'm happy to pay is what I'm saying, to work together for a cost.
I 100% agree. And like, I think about how many jobs like literally created just by owning a few properties. Like it's amazing. It's amazing. So one thing I do really want to touch on as well. So you said that, with the first person you knew who was investing in real estate, they were just kind of telling you all the bad things, right? And that's what I tell people all the time. It's like so many people who are pushing, like, yes, real estate is obviously a risk. Everything in life is a risk. Like literally getting a job is a risk. People complain about their jobs all the time. You don't see people saying like, oh no, don't get a job. And so it's like, you have to be careful with who you surround yourself with. If you want to get into real estate, surround yourself with people who are doing it and they're enjoying it and they're having a good, experience with it. And, but here's the thing though, right? With that person who was complaining about it, he kept going. So you're like, okay, you're complaining about it, but you're still in it and you're still doing it and you're like buying more properties. So there's something we're missing here,
Okay, so I have something so freaking exciting for you. You guys already know how much I love real estate investing. It's literally given me the freedom to quit my corporate job, start this podcast, and become a full-time entrepreneur. Now, if you've been looking to get into real estate investing, particularly if you want to buy something like a duplex, triplex, or a fourplex, or even just a large house with multiple rooms, live in part of it, rent other parts of it out. That way you can live for free and travel the world. I actually have a program called the Wanderlust Wealth Academy where I help people do exactly that. And in that program, it takes you from figuring out your strategy to buying your first property within 6 months. So if that's something you want to do, I want you to message me on Instagram and send me the word START to learn more about it. Or you can go to the link in the show notes and book a call with me or my team so that we can go over all the details. So you know where to find me. Now let's dive back into the show.
Something we were missing. And that was so true. And that's why, you have to ask questions. I'm going to tell you a quick story about my mom. And this was when I really took my asking questions to a different level. So it was this play that was coming to New York, right? So we're about 2 hours from New York. And it was like a very popular play. I can't remember what it was. This was even before my son was born. And so it was this lady who put together a bus excursion. She said, look, we're going to put together this bus excursion. We're going to take everybody out to like a really great dinner before. And then after the dinner, everybody goes to this play. And and the ticket cost covers that. So I bought a ticket for my mom and I bought a ticket for my sister because my sister and my mom is like, they're like roadies, right? They roll together everywhere. So I thought I was doing a great thing. I'm like, yeah, mom, I bought you this ticket. And she started asking me all these questions. I was getting a little annoyed on the phone. Like, I was kind of feeling like the lady that I know that is the most grateful lady in the world is asking me all these darn questions to a play that's like famous. I bought you tickets. And I was like, whatever, mom, bow, right? So maybe like a couple weeks later it went past and I kind of went to go visit my mom and she sat me down. She said, and she did just like this for those. She had her finger out, right? She don't not even a pointing finger person. She said, let me tell you something. When you don't know something, you ask questions. And I don't know all the details that got to do with this trip. That's the reason why I'm asking questions. Now, truth be told is I was still a little annoyed even at that point in time, and I left. And one of the things I do when I'm driving, a lot of the time I might not play any music or anything like that. I might have the radio off because that's my time to think. And, I'm sometimes when I'm by myself, I could just me and I can just think things through. And I start thinking about the conversation my mother just had. And I was like, she's right. I didn't tell her much about all the thing I told her was the date. And all I told her was, you're going to go see this play. But what about the like everything, like where's she going to eat? Like how should she dress? What time everybody needs to meet? Where's the location of the bus where they picking everybody up at? Like, so I had to realize that. And I was like, wow, she's right. Which 99.9% of the time, my mother is always right. So I'm like, man, and at that point in time, I realized that when I don't know anything, I'm not going to be the one that just don't say anything. I'm going to sit here and actually ask. And it goes into that story with my buddy where I'm like, dude, you constantly keep buying these properties, but you constantly complaining. So what's up?
Oh my gosh. No, it's so funny because I wrote this down yesterday as a podcast episode. I need to record like a solo one is like, you need to just keep asking the right questions, right? Because I think the biggest issue too is like a lot of people, they ask questions, but they don't ask the right questions. They almost ask questions already knowing what the outcome is going to be. And it's like a validation for their own personal beliefs versus out of genuine curiosity and trying to understand why they're saying what they're saying,
And you're absolutely right. So I'm going to give everybody a gem here. One of the things I say more like at the end of a conversation is, all right, what questions I didn't ask that I should have asked? Because, honestly speaking, a lot of people, believe it or not, want to help, and like you said, if you ask the right questions, you do get the right answers, but sometimes you don't know what questions to ask. And I sit here and say, hey, are there any questions that I didn't ask that you usually get from other people? Like I say that because I don't know, like, especially when I'm entering into something like a new field that I'm starting to do research on and stuff like that. Like I sit here and tell people, this comes from my job. I sit here and tell people I'm so new, and I still do this to this day. So I would call the bank and say, hey, I want to buy a property. I never bought a property before.
Oh my gosh. That's so funny.
Can you walk me through the process? Let me tell you, when you tell someone like, hey, you're struggling and you need something, people are more than willing to sit here and give you much more information than they give you when you come on the phone and be like, yeah, you know what? I'm a real estate investor or I'm this, that, this, but and I do it till this day. Like till this day, I will call the bank and say, hey, this is my first time. And I say, I need to get this right because if I don't get this right, my wife's going to divorce me.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I give them the story. You have to give them the story. People love stories.
You're like my dad.
Give it to them.
I always just like roll my eyes.
But you got to do what you have to do to get the information, because the information is where it's at. And then obviously you have to implement on the information after that. But that's true. You got to ask those questions.
I love that. So I guess, Lenny, you've kind of jumped into this wonderful mission, right? To really impact the lives of the youth of America, to kind of give them that financial like understanding and knowledge like they don't get in school. So tell me a little bit more about that venture.
Yeah, so it's called, you got my shirt on, the Kids Real Estate and Financial Literacy Academy. And this is something I'm really super proud of, right? Because I sit back and I think about what I didn't have and what most adults didn't have, right, as a kid, and that's financial literacy, right? And so, when I start thinking about it, and I'm going to just tell you how it all really came about. So, me trying to be super dad, right? I'm sitting here thinking, how can I start taking my knowledge? Because my son's 11 during the time that this episode is being recorded. And how can I take my information, start to kind of give it to him, right? And my son's over me. I'm a bag of affirmations, right? I'm his dad, his father, his disciplinarian. I'm his football coach in 3 different leagues. I'm like, everywhere, and he's over me. Now, what I notice is that his friends think I'm super baller. Oh, yeah. His friends think that I am the coolest guy alive. When they see me in the mall somewhere, they shouting me out, coach, everything, right? But my son, I get a speech in the car before I get out the car. Dad, don't do this. Dad, don't
embarrass
do that.
me.
Yes, don't embarrass me, right? So whatever. I'm like, all right, son, you're going to not keep the muzzle on me but for so long. But so I start, all right, how can I do this, right? So I believe in God, right? And I have a relationship I have a vision board right in front of me. You can't see it. So I wrote a question. I said, Lord, should I teach the kids real estate? And then I put it on my vision board and I just left it there, right? And I swear, about 2 months later, I'm riding down the street. I have a bunch of money orders, me and my son, from some tenants that just moved into some of our units. And I'm like, son, add these money orders up for me so I can just go in the bank and drop them in the bank and they can be efficient. So while he was doing that, I took a picture of him and I put it online. I said, hey, you should try to get your kids involved with your business any way, shape, or form. Look, I have my son here adding up some money orders. And I wrote a little more about the real estate, yada, yada, yada. So then deposited the money. Me and my son, we had some activities to do that day, really action-packed day. I came back and I hit social up. I had about 10 messages behind the scenes saying, hey, I would love for my kid to learn real estate. And I was like, oh, well, I guess the Lord answered that question.
Hey, you put it out there into the universe and the universe delivered.
So anything that I do, right? Anything, if I'm teaching you anything, I always teach a mindset piece, period, right? So I created 4 pillars to the academy. So in the name, really, like the academy is much bigger than what the name says, right? So the 4 pillars are: 1, the first pillar is mindset and confidence building. Now I'm gonna tell you this. So each pillar is 2.5 hours, all right? And there's 4 of them because it's a 10-hour basically program. So for 2.5 hours, I was teaching kids between 6th and 8th grade mindset and confidence building. I'm going to tell you, this is being honest. I looked at my wife and I said, I am so nervous to teach this class. And I've never been nervous in my life because I teach adults and adults don't even want to sit through 20 minutes. So how in the world I'm going to sit these kids through 2.5, right? So I'm like, all right, whatever. Wrote up the content, prayed, and said, I'm going in. Right? Went in, did my thing, and I budgeted for 5 minutes at the end of the class for just recap, right? That 5 minutes turned into 25 minutes. They were rebirthing back to me all the things that I was mentioning throughout the class. And it made me feel so good, so great. And it was unbelievable. I almost had one of those Denzel Washington one tear, from Glory, how he had that one tear that kind of fell down his eye. I mean, it was the most emotional thing. And I was like, oh my God, they were reciting things back that I totally forgot that I said in class.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, wow. But it taught me a quick lesson. It's like, it doesn't matter the age. It matters of how you do it, what's delivery, because everything I do is highly interactive and I ensure that is not school, right? I make it that is not school. So I tie a lot of fun to it. But so confidence building and mindset was the first pillar. So I wrote up the second pillar. Second pillar is entrepreneurship. So, you have to teach them the difference between the two businesses, which is service and product. And then we actually build the business in class. So, I wrote up scripts for all the kids. And then we dig in the hat. So some kids are owners, some kids are employees, some kids are customers. So then they like it. They run in these scripts, and we build the business. We run through these scripts, right? And they love it, have so much fun, but they learning, right? How the real world works. And then I stopped teaching at that point in time. Totally stop. And all I do is ask insightful questions. So in this one class, I'm going to tell you what this one kid said, because I remember this vividly. So it was a lawnmower business. So the employee went to mow the customer's lawn. The customer paid them $100. The employee had to turn the $100 in to the owner, and the owner gave them $25 for their pay. So the question was, I was talking to the employees, how do you feel, that you got $25 for their pay? This one kid jumped up out his seat and said, I feel robbed.
Oh my gosh.
Like,
oh my gosh.
And you remember, I can't laugh. You know what I mean?
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, why you feel robbed? He said, because all the owner did was just made the phone call, and I was the one that had to go get the equipment, because I make them go get the equipment. I make them walk around the room to make it look like they're mowing the lawn. It's all part of the script. He said, and I had to drive back. He said, and you told me that it was 90 degrees outside, so I probably was hot. This kid was going in. He said, and he only gave me $25. And, but truthfully, that's what I want. I wanted them to understand, hey, listen, who gets the large part of the pay is going to be whoever owns something. Whoever got the equity is going to sit here and get the larger bag at the end of the day. And for me, between you and me, it's not about right or wrong. It's about understanding how the real world works. All right. And now you understand how the real world works. Now you can make a decision on what line you want to be on, either employee or owner. Right. So we go through all that, and I got so many other questions I asked them. And we also teach them how to leverage other people's time in that whole period. So the third pillar is the financial literacy piece. We all know that this country itself has a credit and debt problem, right? And with that being said, the people that live in this country, got a debt problem as well. And most of it was because they were not educated on how to use it properly. So I run through what credit is, how to use it. I run through what good debt is versus bad debt. We run through so many different scenarios. Remember, I'm highly interactive with the kids, right? We run through so many scenarios. I also teach them how to leverage the credit as well. Okay. Of course, right. I have to do that. We real estate investors,
oh my gosh.
And we teach them also assets versus liabilities. And then the fourth pillar is one part of it is obviously the real estate investing piece, which, I teach them all the terminology. I teach them the 4 ways to make money, and obviously I focus on kids in grades 4th through 12th, but I bulk them from 4th through 8th or 9th through 12th, because depending on if I'm teaching the 9th through 12th, I go deeper with the real estate. Like I'm not teaching a 7th grade and 8th grade how to house hack, right? But 11th and 12th grade, I'm teaching them how to do that, because they're right there.
And they can do it in college. Like if they save up the money they make during the year or during internships and then purchase a property, potentially like something small, and house hack it, rent it out to other classmates. I'm like, gosh, that's the move. That's I remember when I graduated college, I had like 20 something $1,000 in the bank, and I just didn't know. I didn't know. So I blew it, I blew all, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
You need to be in my class.
I could have gotten a NACA loan. I could have gotten 0% down, what?
And that's what I mean. And that's the reason why I want to do this, because if then you at least sit here and make a different choice, right? Because some people, like you said, hey, you had $20,000. You would have done something differently if you would have known, right? And that's the thing. So we teach them that. And one of the big things I make sure that we do too is I don't analyze deals under $500,000. And the reason why is because I want to normalize big numbers to them.
That.
I want them, I want them to understand that, hey, can you buy a house for 200,000, 100,000? Yes, you can. But you also can buy one for 1.2, for 900,000, 700K. Doesn't matter. What matters is you know how to analyze the deal. Obviously, I'm teaching you how to use your credit. You can either leverage your own credit or go out and find, money because money's out there. So, I make sure I'm intentional on showing them deals and analyzing deals over 500K.
I love that. And that's such a good point, because I remember even when I first started my real estate investing journey, a million was crazy to me. I was like, that's absurd. How can you buy $1 million property? And it wasn't until I actually put myself in the room with people doing commercial deals. I joined Heather Blankenship's mastermind and then started getting looking at $2 million, $3 million, $4 million deals. And I was like it just blew my mind, right? Oh, wait, this concept still works and you can leverage. But and if you're not exposed to it, it feels absurd.
Yeah. And what happened in one of my classes, and I implemented this, was I showed them one of my cabins and I told them that it was worth $1 million. And they just was unbelievable. They was like, oh my God. Right. And I'm like, for me, I'm like, it's just $1 million bucks. I deal with people who got property that got 20 million and 30 million. You know what I mean? So for me, I'm like small fry in my head, right? But for them, it was the biggest. And I said, you know what? I have to make sure that I normalize big numbers for these kids, because they think that this is big, and I don't want them to think that. I want them to think that this is normal, that they can achieve this, that they can go out and get this with no problem, because the process is the same. You know what I mean? And then we teach them how to write SMART goals, the acronym SMART. And then we also create a vision board in class with them for their future. And then we graduate them. So we let their parents, their siblings, their friends come to the graduation. And I like to call them young future leaders. So all the young future leaders, I work with them on a stage presence. So they get up, on stage, and they say, hey, here's my vision board. They tell them everybody what they want to do in the future. And then they also talk about, the things that they learned in the program as well. And we give them a certificate of completion, and bada boom, bada bang.
Crazy. It's you also know they're going to remember this for the rest of their lives. They're going to think back to the academy and be like, wow, I didn't realize how big that ended up being, how important that really was. Because I think back to experiences that I had either in college or in high school. I remember, so I used to sell Cutco, the knives, right? But my manager, he was super awesome and would always bring me in on personal development stuff. And I think the first book he told me to read was The 4 Agreements. And I literally still go back to those days where I was first learning about personal development. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. And I will never forget that,
Wow. And that's the thing, because, I just always sit back and say, man, and we all say it. For everybody, it's 1,000 out of 1,000 people say, man, I wish I would have known what I knew today back then. Because once you expose to things, you're able to sit here and make a different type of decision. A lot of people, they go to college, they get these credit cards, they're not educated on how they work, and they get themselves in debt. And then they kind of double debt, because once they get out of school, they got the college student loan, right? And then they also got this credit card debt where they didn't pay it. Therefore, now it's kind of ruining their credit. So they're starting really not even 3 feet behind, but they're starting 12 feet behind, because they got bad credit and credit debt and student loan.
Yeah.
Right? And it's that's not how it's supposed to happen. When you come out of school, you're supposed to be 5 steps ahead. And that's not happening. So, I'm and then what's happening is people getting themselves together kind of when they're 30, 33, 34. But, what if you would have been together at 22? That's 8 years of things you could have been doing. And then at 30, 33, you could have been living a whole totally different life. You know what I mean? So that's my thing is I just want these kids to know that what's out here, what you're supposed to know. Here's the foundation to things. Now you're not foreign to these things. And, and I'm telling you, I mean, we go through all different types of scenarios, and I love doing it because we do a lot of hands-on things. So the kids, it was this one exercise where the kid, I made sure the kid was broke. And, but he owed money. So every time I was the bill collector. So every month I was coming to collect. So once he went broke, I'm like, okay, it's March. What you got for me? He said, well, I got a school book. He gave me a school book. I said, okay, it's April. What you got for me? He said, well, I got a jacket. He gave me his jacket. I said, okay, it's May. What you got for me? He said, I just got my shirt. He started taking his shirt off. Feeling so sad. Everybody started laughing, but they got it. They told, because what happened was one kid decided to invest into a business that's going to pay him. So how I set it up was both of them got like this money on their birthdays. And one kid invested their money, and then the other kid purchased like all these games and stuff and blew their money, but had a debt, and had to pay. So, and he was seeing the difference between, wow, the decision that kid made, even though he didn't have the game at first, he eventually got the game 6 months later.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And he also got money coming in, and then you got no money, but you got the game, and then your game wound up breaking, and you got no money to get it fixed. And now you're taking your shirt off to pay your debt, and I make it that dramatic because I want them to get it. Like, and truth be told, it is that dramatic. Like, people lose their houses, people lose their cars. I mean, repo is a thing. They even got a whole TV show for it. So,
oh my gosh.
So, and I just want them to know that, you can live really a great life. All you have to do is just be a little bit educated, right? And make somewhat, I'm not even going to say all the way, make somewhat of the right decision, and you can go ahead and be on your way.
I completely there's so many freaking good nuggets in this podcast episode, like just so good. I know we're like coming up to time here, but I want to ask you the final 3 interview questions that I ask every single person. Number 1 is, what does your ideal perfect day look like?
Wow, my ideal perfect day. Sheesh. All right, well, first waking up,
ideally,
right? So let's start here, right? I'm so grateful for waking up, and my perfect day is making sure that, I wake my son up in the morning, because I tell him when I wake him up every morning that he's the man and I love him, and we're ready to conquer the day. And then we have affirmations on his wall, so he has to say we say it together, actually. We say the affirmations together every morning. So to me, that kind of start my day. Obviously, I read some word, get some word up in me. I like to exercise. And then my perfect day really is making sure that the sun is out, right? And it's about 80 degrees, and it's somewhat throughout that day on me, because I love to work, right? So me doing some work and me sitting here taking gaps out of my day to spend time doing some other things that doesn't involve me, but make somebody else happy. Example being taking my kid and being his football coach. Example being, me and my wife, we do these date lunches where, we act like we 18. We text each other. What you doing? So cute. And like, do you want to go to lunch with me? So, but what that does is it keeps us spunky, it keeps it fun, it keeps it enjoyable. And we wind up doing these, I like to call them pop-up lunches, and we sit here, we pick a table, and sometimes the places are really fabulous places, and sometimes they hole in the wall places, right? But the whole objective is that. So that's really my perfect day, man, is just to sit here and involve myself with some family, help some people out that really does not involve me, but put some smiles on people's faces. Do some type of work. I got to work. I'm telling you that now. I have to, because I'm pretty sure you see me online. I'm always just doing something. So I gotta work and having an 80-degree day and some good food and just making sure my family's good.
I love that. Okay, question number 2. What is your mantra?
My mantra.
Something that you tell yourself over and over again.
My mantra. What is my mantra? What do I tell myself over and over and over again? That I can do it. The thing, and it comes out so many different ways. My staff, right? My managers. I used to have like 10 managers. They used to always say, "Dude, you simplify things like it's so easy." Like, and I'm just like, in my mind, it is. But once I believe that I can do it, it's like, man, I tell myself we can do it, and I'm gung-ho about it. I'm happy about it. I'm smiling. I also tell myself to smile, right? To the point where, it's natural. I tell people I live a practice life, right? And not a light switch life. And what I mean by that is I practice to be this way with personal development, feeding myself with the right ingredients, what I read, what I watch on TV, the people that I am around, the conversations that I'm having, all those things matters to where I am and how I feel today. And I constantly, intentional about that to make sure that, and I also tell myself to always to just smile and feel good because I love being happy. So,
I love that so much. I mean, I feel that. Okay, question number 3 and the last question. What does wealth mean to you?
Wealth. What does wealth means to me? So at one point in life, man, I thought wealth meant just having a whole bunch of money, right? And I realized as I continue to get older, for me, that's not it. So what wealth means to me is obviously having great health, because if you have a whole bunch of money and you don't have great health, I'm not sure how much you can enjoy it, right? Another thing what wealth means to me, which is probably different from everyone else, is I like to see everybody win. I don't want to be the only person who's sitting here taking the trips, who's, out in Jamaica and out on an island or any of these places that I want to go. I want to make sure that other people can afford it and afford it for their sake, not just me sitting here saying, hey, I got enough money to pay for everyone, right? Wealth to me is also making sure that everybody eats. Right. And that's a boss. That's why they call me Lenny the Boss. Right. I ensure that, hey, I want to create situations where all of us are eating off this situation. You know what I mean? And that's, to me, that's wealth to me, health, making sure that all your friends are eating off of any situation that you can create, making sure that your circle is strong and you're helping each other out. And obviously, my family. And then the last but not least is ensuring that you can make a decision, because that's boss too. Anybody can put a boss in their name. And the only way you can do it is if you make your own decisions. If you're not out here making your own decisions, you're not a boss. But if you're out here, you can make your own decisions and boom, you could put a boss to your name. So that's all wealth to me.
I love that. Well, this was wonderful, Lenny. What is the best way that people can reach out to you, especially, if they want to schedule something for maybe their kids in their school, or, do some sort of an event with the Academy? What's the best way that they can reach out to you?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. You can you can go to www.kidsrealestateacademy.com/enroll. You just want to opt in because you got to get this newsletter and you get all the updates of what we're doing. All right. Once again, it's kidsrealestateacademy.com/enroll. And if you want to follow me, I'm on Facebook and IG. You can go to lennytheboss.com/Facebook or lennytheboss.com/IG. And that's spelled LENNYTHEBOSS.com/IG or Facebook. Follow me. I will accept your request.
I love that. No, and it's so fun because I was just at the MTR conference. Well, I didn't actually go, but I, came afterwards for the MTR conference, and someone said that they had hired you to come and teach their kids on a full day thing. And she was like, it was amazing. Like the kids were so lit up after. So I'm just it just brings me so much joy that you're doing this, because it's such a big need. And I know it's going to impact people, young minds, so much going forward. So I'm just super lit up about it.
Yeah, just to add one thing, we partner up with people. So I live in New Jersey on the East Coast, and that event was out in California, all the way on the West Coast. So I do look to partner up with anyone that have youth. So if you're involved with the school districts, if you're involved with Boys and Girls Club, anyone, YMCA, mentoring, anyone that have youth, hey, get in contact with me. Let's have a conversation. And I have no problem traveling and bringing the Academy to you.
I love this. Well, thank you so much, Lenny. This was fabulous.
Thank you for having me. I had so much fun. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to Wanderlust Wealth Show. Now, don't forget to follow the podcast, or if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you love this episode, it would literally mean the world to me if you shared this with a friend or a family member or literally like anyone off of the street. Like right now, go ahead, share it so you don't forget, or post it on social media and make sure to tag me. I love seeing what you're listening in on and what you resonated with, and I'm just so freaking thankful for you. I'm so freaking excited for you. I love you, and don't forget, life really doesn't have to be hard.